The Indianapolis Colts get one starter back on the offensive line this week, but they will be without Alec Pierce yet again. Let's get to it.
You are Locked On Colts, your daily Indianapolis Colts podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thank you all for listening to Locked On Colts. This is your daily podcast covering your Indianapolis Colts, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to remind you guys that you can follow our show and hear new episodes ad-free daily on Amazon Music. And this episode is brought to you by Mazda. Like the players, Mazda sweats every detail because when you make every move count, pulling off the unexpected is only the beginning. Stay tuned later for highlights this week in moving the game forward. Mazda, moved and be moved. Hello, everyone. My name is Zach Hicks, your resident film nerd of HorseshoeHuddle.com, and my partner in crime, Jake Arthur, is the credentialed boots on the ground for Round Table Sports. We're going to bring you guys our typical Friday action here on the show, talking all about the Colts injury report, diving into the offense a little bit against this Las Vegas Raiders team coming up. We're going to talk about the defense, and then we're going to give our final outlook on the game, plus projection and final score prediction as well. But Jake, we got some more injury news here, some good and obviously some bad as well. The Colts have one questionable player this week, and that's going to be defensive end Tyquan Lewis, who popped up late on the injury report with an oblique injury. And then the Colts also ruled out 4 players. Cornerback Kenny Moore II with an Achilles injury, running back Tyler Goodson with a groin injury, and safety Daniel Scott with a knee injury. And then the surprise late rule out of the week, wide receiver Alec Pierce with that concussion. It looked like it was trending in a positive direction all week. He suffered a little bit of a setback here on the final day, wasn't able to practice, and the Colts ruled him out of this game. I will say it's not uncommon for a player to miss 2 games with a concussion, but there is that concern because this is his 3rd concussion in the NFL that you know, you always want to be wary of stuff like this. So Alec Pierce will at least miss this next game. Hopefully we can get him back for the next one after this against the Cardinals. But yeah, Jake, it's going back to, you know, a lot of the same of what we saw last week outside of Matt Gonsalves returning the action to right guard. It's going to be a pretty big addition for this Colts team. But what are your thoughts on the injury report here going into this game?
Yeah, I think the Colts getting Gonsalves back is huge because the guy was playing really, really good football before he got hurt. Dalton Tucker, not his strongest start, but was kind of building on what we saw a little bit last year. So that guy's going to get better as time goes, but ideally you would like to see it being Gonsalves. So him being back is great. Michael Pittman Jr., that little hamstring scare from Thursday, he's going to be good to go. That's an even bigger sigh of relief. Alec Pierce, obviously your primary deep threat. That one's tough. So you want to see what the Colts are going to do because, you know, Shane Steichen has said A.D. Mitchell is going to have to kind of earn that role back, which discipline or not, however you want to look at it, like they're kind of resetting expectations and making him just be pedal to the metal. So, you know, last week he was the one that was in that Alec Pierce role and got a bunch of snaps out of it. Do they make any adjustments to that, you know, this week? We'll see. I think regardless, we're going to see a little more Ashton Doolin. So we'll see what the balance is. Like, does A.D. Mitchell play his normal role as if Alec Pierce is in there? We'll see. Just because I do think at the same time they want to maybe give him a little bit of an opportunity to redeem himself. But if we're sticking to Shane Steichen's word, he does have to, you know, kind of rebuild that trust and all those things. So yeah, that's an interesting one there. Kenny Moore being out, that obviously means Mike Hilton, I'm sure, is going to get the call up on Saturday. He had I think a pretty good performance last Sunday, especially for a guy who hadn't played the first 3 weeks, was coming into a new team. He knows Louis Anarumo's system, but like regardless, it's still a new team with new teammates and everything. Played pretty solid. And then Goodson and Daniel Scott, 2 special teams guys, kind of makes you wonder who the other call up from the practice squad will be. But yeah, I think they can live through these injuries, of course, but a couple of guys out there you would absolutely prefer to have around.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's going to be Bentley will be the other call up at running back, just so you have a 3rd guy available for this game. Obviously, there's some other ways that could go with it. They could go wide receiver to add wide receiver depth, but I think it's going to be a running back. You just can't have only 2 running backs on the roster in an NFL game. But yeah, let's transition this into talking about the offense, because you made a good point talking about AD Mitchell, and where Shane Steichen all week, when pressed about it, has said that they want to have Mitchell earn back that trust and work his way back into the lineup. But now you're kind of in the situation where you can't properly bench him. If that was the route, you can't properly bench him this week, because he's one of the 4 guys at wide receiver that you have for offense. Anthony Gould's not really a factor in this. So, they really have just those 4 guys that they really roll with. And, Ashton Doolin's not going to be 100% snap guy on both special teams and offense. That's a crazy load for him there. Right. So it is interesting to see what the snap count will look like for Mitchell and even Doolin as well. And it's kind of an interesting matchup too, because I think with this Raiders defense, you can run the ball on them for sure, but really where they're vulnerable is the passing game. And as much as I love Doolin, he's so much more limited compared to a player like Mitchell, to where, like, if you do decide, hey, Doolin's going to get more snaps than Mitchell, you have to be on your P's and Q's when it comes to scheming guys wide open, because you're not going to have that extra juice that Mitchell gives you of getting open on his own, So it's going to be interesting to see how they approach this game, because Doolin obviously gives the Colts a bigger boost in the run game if you play him over Mitchell, but how much you lose in the passing game, just in terms of the ability to get open, could be pretty big in a matchup against the Raiders team that is very vulnerable against the pass. One of the worst pass defenses in football right now. Yeah. You want to throw the ball against them, and you want to have as many weapons as possible out there. So for as inconsistent as AD Mitchell is, you got to probably have some role for him this week, just because, again, you've got to throw the ball this week to win.
Yeah. And like you mentioned, Anthony Gould has kind of been used exclusively at slot, like in practice. And you probably can't really call someone up, because, like you mentioned, you got to call running back up. You got to call Mike Hilton up. So, that kind of limits what you're able to do. But I'm with you. Like I watched the Raiders' most recent game against the Bears this morning. And yeah, as long as you play keep away from Maxx Crosby, you're going to be fine. Like the Bears and Caleb Williams threw into him a few times. I think Crosby had 3 pass breakups in that. And it's like, dude, just don't throw at him. Like, where he is. Don't throw directly at him. And so the Colts have that film. I think they're going to be a little bit careful. Caleb Williams is obviously going to take some chances that Daniel Jones won't, or, he's going to be a little wiser not to do. So yeah, I think the Bears also tried to kind of use like some delays and screens to their advantage to, like, let Crosby get upfield, and then that kind of clears up that whole area, get some yards after catch opportunities. So yeah, I think Daniel Jones, this sets up for him to be absolutely lethal and surgical against this defense, because they just don't have much going on at all. Like, especially linebacker, you've got Jermaine Pratt, you've got Devin White. Those aren't guys that super excel in the pass game. Like, they can run and chase things in front of them in the run game, and they can stretch things out a little bit against the run. But as far as creating like yards after catch opportunities over the middle of the field, or even getting Jonathan Taylor out on the outside by himself with one guy to miss, like the Colts should have the advantage there. But yeah, when I don't want to downgrade a defense too much, but when I watched them, I was like, if you literally just keep the ball away from Maxx Crosby and don't run in his direction, you'll be perfectly fine. And with as intuitive as we've seen the Colts be as play callers and executing most of the season, I think they will be just fine in this one.
Yeah, I think a big part of this is just going to be getting back to what worked in those first couple of weeks, which was coming out in those heavier sets, those 12 personnel, 13 personnel. They did a lot of 13 personnel against the Dolphins actually in week 1. It wasn't quite effective, but again, they showed that they still have that package in their system. Coming out in those heavier personnel sets, utilizing 6, 7, 8-man blocking assignments, and then just trusting your wide receivers and tight ends on islands against this linebacker core, against this cornerback group that's not the strongest right now and a bit banged up. I think that's going to be key for this Colts team. Again, get the passing game going early out of these heavier personnel sets, and then in the second half, you can start relying on that run game with Jonathan Taylor out of lighter personnel sets. So I think it's just getting back to what worked those first 3 weeks, making sure that they avoid those pre-snap penalties, and I think they'll be able to put points on the board. They should be able to move the ball at will in this game. The key, as always, will be converting in the red zone. But I think this can be like a similar showing to like the Dolphins or Titans games on offense, just in terms of how effectively they moved the ball in those two games and got to the red zone. Again, the key will just be converting there. But yeah, come out in those 12 personnel sets, throw the ball, play action, 7-man protections, give a lot of attention to Maxx Crosby, and then just trust that Tyler Warren, Michael Pittman Jr., and Josh Downs will get open against a secondary and linebacker room that's not among the best in football right now. So I think there's a clear path for this offense to put points on the board. It's just if they can stay on track, avoid those pre-snap penalties, and move that ball forward constantly, I think they'll be in a good place. But coming up, the bigger question in this one, Geno Smith has struggled quite a bit for the Raiders this season. Can he continue his struggles against a Colts defense coming off a pretty tough showing against Matthew Stafford last week?
This episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that make the neighborhood the neighborhood. These are places that become an extension of home, whether it's the sports bar dedicated to your favorite fan base, the spot with the best wings in town for game day, or that beloved local chain that's been rooted in your community for years. These businesses are what bring people together. When neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. One local business here in Indy that uses Square is Gaucho's Fire Express there at the Garage Food Hall. If you haven't been to the Garage Food Hall, a lot of places over there use Square, but one of my favorites absolutely is Gaucho's Fire. Incredible Brazilian food, all sorts of like just really, really good chicken options. I think their French fries are out of this world. I don't even care about fries, but that's one place where if I go there, I'm getting the fries because they're just dynamite. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnNFL to learn more. But before you do, go to support your favorite neighborhood spot, just like Gaucho's Fire. You'll be happy you did. Square. See you in the neighborhood. And this episode is also brought to you by Mazda's moving the game forward. For those who believe it's not just about playing the game, it's about redefining it. There are moments that do more than put points on the board. They move crowds, move culture, and they keep moving the game forward. And this week's moment that moved the game forward is, since the Colts lost on this one, we're not going to pick a special defining moment in this one. But when you look back throughout the year, I think the best one that we've really seen that exemplifies this Mazda moment is at Spencer Schrader getting that 40-plus yard field goal at the end of regulation to beat the Denver Broncos 29-28. When I think about, Mazda and what we want to look for in these moments with the Colts, I keep coming back to that one every single time. Maybe the Colts will have another big one this week against the Raiders. But when you follow what moves you, the unexpected is the beginning. And just like there's more to every highlight, there's more to Mazda vehicles. Mazda, move and be moved. Welcome back to Locked On Colts Everydayers. We just discussed the Colts offense and what they might look like against the Raiders defense. Well, let's go ahead and flip the script and see what the Colts defense might look like against the Raiders offense featuring Geno Smith and Ashton Jeanty. Now, Geno Smith it's not been his best performance with the Raiders so far, but they have recently kind of figured out how to get Ashton Jeanty really rolling. Had a few touchdowns last week, a couple in the passing game. I believe had over 100 yards rushing as well. He was big time in that one. He's back to his Michael Myers stance, which is huge for him as well. But what do you think? I think it's a whole lot different if you have Geno Smith performing like a veteran quarterback. But right now, he looks like a guy with a pretty poor offensive line and whose top receiver is Jacoby Myers. That's what it looks like to me.
Yeah, the big thing with this game is that Geno Smith has never really been a quarterback, even in his resurgence the last couple of years. He's never really been a quarterback that gets the ball out quickly. It's not saying that he holds the ball forever, but he loves the vertical shot. He loves to utilize his arm. This is going back to when you and I was in high school. Jake, you were probably, actually, no, this is probably before high school. I was in middle school. Jake, you were probably in high school then when Geno Smith was at West Virginia throwing those vertical shots constantly. He's always just been this kind of quarterback. Even with this resurgent recently, he loves the big play, and it leads to him holding the ball a little bit longer. And when you don't have your starting left tackle And the Colts defensive line has not played great this year, but last week they're coming off like a fantastic showing. Leatu Latu had the best game of his career. They're going to put Latu on that side of the field a lot. I think that can be the big turning point in this game, is how well Latu can play from that backside, that blind side of the quarterback that likes to hold the ball a little bit and beat a player like Stone Forsythe, who has been a very up and down player, to say, to give him the credit in his career. So I think that's going to be the biggest matchup of the game, is Leatu Latu versus a backup offensive tackle, how often he can get around them, how much the chips affect him and stuff like that. And then when it comes to just overall coverage, the other big storyline is the cornerback 2 spot. The cornerback 2 spot with Xavier Howard's retirement, it's going to be mostly Mekhi Blackmon is going to be out there, but Jonathan Edwards will certainly rotate in and be a little bit in the dime packages. So how well do these two young players perform? Blackmon technically gave up the 4th most yards in coverage last week among all NFL corners, but 88 of those came on a play where he tripped. So we'll see if it can be a little bit better this upcoming week. But I think the defense matches up fairly well. A little concerned about Jeanty for sure, because he's just an animal. Luckily, the Raiders O-line is probably the worst run blocking O-line the Colts have faced all year. If you actually look across the teams they've played, I mean, the Dolphins pass blocking is pretty bad, but their run blocking is pretty solid. They've always been that way under McDaniels there. And then you go to the other teams. They put Broncos really good pass blocking and run blocking O-line. Titans have a good run blocking O-line with some veterans up front. And then last week, of course, the Rams O-line, they can't pass block, but they can run block a little bit. This team, the Raiders, have been just putrid in run blocking all season long. So maybe that can get the Colts back on track with their run defense and you just want to hit Jeanty as much as possible. He's going to fall forward for 5, 6, 7 yards a lot. He is a really, really good running back that doesn't go down on first contact. But as long as you can rally tackle, get as many bodies on him as possible, you can get him down. And then I think it's a good week for the pass coverage just to bounce back. I thought they did a lot of things really, really well last week. It's just Matthew Stafford is playing at an MVP level. I mean, we all watched the game last night against the 49ers. The Rams came in there with their D-plus game, and Stafford almost willed them to victory. Should have willed them to victory if they just called anything else but a run up the middle on that 4th and 1. All this to say, I think this is a good week for the Colts. I like Latu versus the backup offensive tackle matchup. I like the Colts D-line versus this offensive line in terms of run blocking and just, getting on Jeanty in a hurry. And then Geno Smith's not Matthew Stafford. So I think the pass coverage overall will be in a much better place than where it was this last week, where they did so many things well. It's just Stafford was on one all game long. I think they're going to have a lot more success this week against Geno Smith. Maybe they don't take the ball away as much as Geno. Like, eventually Geno's picks have to come down. It's not going to be like Jameis Winston throwing for like 50 picks in a season. But, I think you can at least get him off the field on 3rd downs, which is much more that we can say about some of the games this year for the Colts. So I think they have a good bounce back week on defense this week.
Yeah, starting with Smith, he had 3 pretty bad interceptions against the Bears last week. 2 of them were, it's like he didn't even realize Kevin Byard was on the field for the Bears. Byard did a great job of kind of improvising those a little bit and baiting Smith into them. But at the same time, looking from like the quarterback's view, the behind the back view, it's like he didn't even notice. And then, the Colts have a free safety in Cam Bynum who can do a little bit of that himself. So I look for Smith to give you at least 1 or 2 opportunities to make a turnover there. Jeanty, I think that it's kind of advantageous for the Colts because, again, like you mentioned, the run blocking is not great, which gives you more time to swarm to the ball. Now, if you're giving Jeanty any space to run and one guy to beat, he's going to capitalize on that. He's very, very good. But if you swarm to the ball, muddy the waters for him, fit the run there and the gaps, I think you're going to be fine. And then Brock Bowers has just, unfortunately, he's banged up with the knee. I think he's supposed to play. I think he's going to wind up being questionable, but he's supposed to play. But he's not looked like the Brock Bowers of last year. And so, I still don't want to see like Zaire Franklin lined up one-on-one with him or anything like that. But you're getting a little bit of a break not having the best tight end in the NFL in this one. Like they'd only targeted him, I think, once going into the 4th quarter last week. It seems like they're being a little bit careful with him just with what that knee is putting him through. So yeah, there's just not a lot that worries me there outside of obviously Jeanty. Jacoby Myers, the more I look at it, it's not a great pairing with Geno Smith. I think with Myers being the number one receiver, it's not great. Like Trey Tucker, this would have been a good matchup for Trey Tucker to go against Xavier Howard, but now that's not a thing because he's a bit of a burner. They like to use him in different ways, like jet sweeps and end arounds and stuff like that. But, if it's going to be Blackman, Blackman's got some speed out there. I think they'll be fine. Charvarius Ward, I imagine he can, if they're even going to have him like shadow Myers, we'll see. But I think the Colts are going to be perfectly fine in this one. I look for the pass rush to really get this thing going. I don't think they have an answer for Buckner. They shouldn't have an answer for Latu. Tyquan Lewis is questionable, so even if he plays with the oblique, you might see more JT Tuimoloau in this one. Samson Ebukam, you're probably going to see a bit more of him as well. So we'll see what those guys are able to do, but I really put a kind of the onus on Latu to make this a game in which it looks like he should dominate and that he actually does. So we'll see how that goes, but there's not a ton outside of Jeanty that really bothers me about the Raiders offense.
Yeah, it's a big week for Latu to prove that last week wasn't a fluke. He's coming off the best career game that he's had since UCLA. Let's make sure we build on that, especially against some backup offensive linemen here, and put together a really great week. And then for Bowers, real quick, I think he's going to get a lot of the Cross and Edwards treatment on third downs. When Thomas comes on in their dime personnel and their 3 safety sets, it's going to be a lot of Cross. And then when Edwards comes in for their 4 cornerback sets, it'll be Edwards probably trailing him. So a little banged up Brock Bowers. I think those guys can do decent against him. He's still Brock Bowers at the end of the day, but he's not the Brock Bowers of last season because that knee injury is really dragging him down this year.
Yeah, he's playing through it, but it's giving them someone that could probably move the chains, but he's not like that incredible yards after catch guy that we're used to seeing from him. All right, guys, in a moment, you could probably tell by our tone that we have a certain idea how this game is going to go, but we will give our official predictions here in just a moment.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, welcome back, everydayers. We are talking Colts Raiders. We've talked about the offense. We've talked about the defense. But how is this game going to go? Zach, so we have a streak that's been broken for you. So I don't know how you feel like you are allowed to pick anymore. Because, again, streak buster, the Rams, they ruined the whole thing. We thought we were going to go perfect 17-0 with you dogging on them, but we don't get to have that anymore. So what do you think? Give us the real uncut thoughts on, what is going to transpire in Colts Raiders. It feels a lot closer to the Dolphins and Titans than it does the Broncos and Rams.
Yeah, I will say if I pick them this week and they lose, then I'm never picking them ever again the rest of my life. I will always pick against them just to be the negative Nancy each week. Because, when you pick against your team, you can never have a bad week. If they lose, you can just gloat and say you got it right. And if they win, you're happy you got it wrong. And they won. Nothing good comes from picking them. But I say all this to say I think the Colts do win this game. I think I'm going to have something... Let's go 29-20 in this one. 29-20 for the Colts in this game. Kind of a wonky score, but I think the Colts kick quite a few field goals because I think they're going to move the ball quite well on offense. It's just going to be about converting in the red zone, which has been up and down for them all year. But Yeah, I think this Colts team should definitely be able to bounce back this week. On offense, even with Alec Pierce out, they just have too many weapons against this Raiders defense that is lacking in the linebacker room and in the secondary. The Colts should be able to throw the ball fairly well as long as they avoid Maxx Crosby and avoid forcing deep shots that aren't there. Then I think that this Colts team should be able to move the ball up and down the field. And then on defense, I saw so many good things in coverage from this defense. I think a lot of guys are growing in this system. I think they're close. And really, I thought it was a great coverage game from the Colts. It's just, again, Matthew Stafford. I don't want to make excuses, but Stafford was playing quarterback at a level I haven't seen in a while in that game. So I think that they can really show it this week on how well they played. By going against a quarterback that's not Stafford and taking the ball away from Geno Smith, suffocating a couple of the routes that the Raiders want to run, and just taking away those options on third down. So, yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty productive game for the Colts. The key will just be not having a big special teams gaffe, because when it comes to upsets in the NFL, the biggest factor is like a special teams touchdown or special teams penalties that give extra life to an offense or defense. So avoiding those big issues, which I think the Colts have been better on special teams in recent weeks, to say that. And then just winning the turnover game, I think will be big for them too. But yeah, I think this Colts team should win handily as long as they bring their B game, C+ game. I think they should be able to win this pretty comfortably, as long as they just get back to what they were doing in those first 3 weeks.
Yeah, you're right. There's been a million block kicks in the NFL lately. So yeah, that's always something to keep an eye on. And then again, the whole leverage thing with the Colts in week 2. So the weird wonky stuff that comes up, especially on special teams, can be such an X factor. I'm going hard on this one. They go 34-13. It's going to be a sizable victory.
Dang,
so most of the year, they played really, really good football. And I think they just match up really well defensively in this one. Like, if Jacoby Myers is your top receiver and you've got Charvarius Ward should clearly be able to take care of that. I think Mekhi Blackmon matches up against Trey Tucker a lot more than Xavier Howard would have. Then the run blocking, or lack thereof, I think is going to lead to the Colts being able to swarm to the ball with Ashton Jeanty. And then, if Lou Anarumo is able to throw some things at Geno Smith that messes up his timing, and he has some errant passes over the middle, like we clearly have seen him have, then you're going to create some more turnovers and things like that as well. And I think Ashton Jeanty put one on the turf last week as well. So they turned the ball over 1 million times against the Bears. So yeah, I feel really, really good about this one. It's of course with the thought that they're going to be playing at a high level and not shooting themselves in the foot and all those things. But they have done a pretty good job of that throughout the year. Last week, I'm going to assume it was just a really good opponent forcing them into uncharacteristic mistakes. Because, again, it's uncharacteristic because they haven't been committing all those costly errors throughout the year. So, yeah, I think they're going to stomp them in this one, 34-13. Again, back at home. You had mentioned earlier in the week as well, being at home, you don't have to deal with all of the window dressing and issues with communication before your hard counts and things like that should be perfectly fine. So yeah, going to be a sizable victory in this one. They moved to what's that going to be, 4-1 now. So let's go.
They definitely need it because the Texans are, in my book, they're already 2-3 going against the Ravens practice squad this week. Yeah. So they're going to need to be able to get to 4-1 to keep that pace in the division. Jaguars are playing the Chiefs, but they're still playing some good football. They might win that game. So the Colts definitely want to move to 4-1 this week, continue those winning ways, and build that lead in the AFC South. Jake, before we get out of here, though, I'm going to put you on the spot. You already had your bold prediction by saying that they're going to blow out victory, but you have any player predictions or things that you want to throw out there? Because I have a couple that I want to throw in.
Let's see. So I don't think it's bold to say Jonathan Taylor is going to have a big game because he owns the Raiders. He always has 150 yards and 2 touchdowns against them. So that I won't do that. I was pretty close last week. I said either A.D. Mitchell or Tyler Warren would have 90 yards.
You did have that technically. Mitchell had over 90.
No, it happened, but it's can you really take a win on that?
Win. A win is a win. A win is
I was right, but was I? No. So Tyler will have Tyler is either going to have 100 yards or 2 touchdowns. One of the two will happen.
Two rushing touchdowns.
I'm not saying rushing.
I'll say 2 rushing
touchdowns. And then Cam Bynum's getting his 3rd pick of the year.
Okay.
Kevin Byard's not even playing good football for the Bears this year, really, and he got 2 picks. I think Cam Bynum comes up with 1 this week.
All right, I'm going to go with my 2nd straight Ashton Doolin prediction week. Last week I said that Doolin was going to have a big catch, and he had his first catch of the season. It was only like 10 yards, but he did have he had 2 touches in that game, and I still want to stick with that prediction. I think with how they've used Doolin on offense this year, and especially because he could have an increased role this week, with how they've used him as a blocker and a lot of these like motions into the backfield, there's still something. I know they have a play somewhere in there where they can draw up an open shot to Doolin out of the backfield, or leaking him out as he fakes a block and gets out into the flat and get him like a 20 or 30 yard gain up the sideline. I'm still holding out hope that they have that in their back pocket. And then I want to throw out one more here. Anthony Gould return touchdown, baby. We're going to have that return touchdown this year.
I love that. I was just about to add that on at the end of yours, and I will give a reason why.
He's been close on a couple. There was 2 returns against the Rams. One where he had like a 40-something yard return, and then the very first return of the game, he slipped. And if he didn't slip, when I was watching that on TV, I was like, he was going on that one. So I think the kick return touchdown is coming at some point for Gould. He's just been too close this year. The Colts special teams, as I mentioned earlier, has been getting better and better each week. We had a couple really great punts from Rigo this season, with Doolin having that awesome gunner rep last week as well, where he stuffed the returner for a 0-yard gain. We had the block kick, obviously, against the Titans, and their like average return depth allowed and also returning where they're getting it has been increasing and decreasing, like respectively, recently. So I think they're getting a lot better on special teams. So I think it really breaks through this week with a big Anthony Gould return.
I like that one a lot. So you saw a lot of really good things against the Rams, because that kicker is tops in the league at pinning returners back. It's because there's no hang time on those kicks. Like, he has that knuckleball where it's just immediately at the returner. And if your blockers aren't winning their blocks, then it's just dead on arrival. But the Colts are pretty good at blocking up those returns. The Raiders do a lot of interesting things. They hardly ever kick off the ball the same way each time. And I noticed they do a lot of that like anti-hang time stuff too. And we saw the Colts have success with that last week. So as long as the special teams guys on the return team are nailing their blocks, Gould is an explosive guy. We just haven't seen him bust the long one yet. I like your prediction a lot. This has the recipe for it.
Yeah, I know for a fact he's going to get one this year, because there's just been too many opportunities, but I think this is a good week for it. I think at home, coming off a loss, a type of game where, like, to get to your prediction, Jake, the blowouts happen when the special teams touchdowns are factored in. So if the Colts are going to hit your blowout prediction, they're going to need that special teams touchdown. So I think that could be a big game changer in this one. But that's all we have for you guys today. Make sure you're tuning in after the game on Sunday as we break it all down, the Colts squad show, for that post-game reaction. And thank you guys for making Locked On Colts your first listen today and every day. The NFL season is finally here. So for your next listen, get a double dose of the Locked On NFL podcast. Tyler the Madman Rowland gives you a shot of espresso to start your football day, while Tony Wiggins takes you into the barbershop for the smoothest breakdowns to end the day. Find Locked On NFL on YouTube, where we list your podcast. If you guys want to become a Locked On Colts insider and chat with us directly and get that insider scoop, follow the link in our show notes. And if you don't already, make sure you're following at Locked On Colts, at Jake Arthur NFL, and at Zach Hicks 2, all on socials. Also, subscribe to us on YouTube or wherever you listen to your podcast. We love your ratings and reviews as well. Have a great day. And again, we'll see you guys back here after the game Sunday afternoon.